My purpose is to impact as many people positively and to honestly prevent as many suicides as I can, to reach other people in an honest way about how suicide has affected my life and how people who are really struggling with it, they almost never want to say anything, whether it's guilt or shame or struggle. The ability to create those honest conversations when someone is struggling with it, if I can be a conversation starter in that, or if I can get somebody to have an honest conversation about suicide, then that's a successful life for me.
What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others.
In case you missed it,
The consequence of trauma is you don't think you're worthy enough to live that beautiful life that somebody's living. You're kind of destined for this. But I wanted to be a better wife to my husband, and I wanted to be a better mom to my daughter. And that was the driving force for me. I started with them, but now this is for me. I could live this life and I'm totally worthy of it, but it required me to do the work. Somebody couldn't give me that. It required some effort on my part.
You do have to put in the work, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a snap your fingers kind of thing. And I would add that it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it.
available everywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Welcome back, Impact Heroes. Today we have a super special episode with our latest iSpark Change social impact hero, and he is a special one indeed. Our guest today is someone whose life was drastically changed 20 years ago when he had no control over it because he wasn't even 2 years old at the time. He experienced the tragedy of an untimely death as his mother took her own life on July 8, 2004, after her bipolar disorder had drastically worsened and suicide seemed to be the only answer out. While hearing this, one might expect the worst, but he didn't let this occurrence define his life in the negative way, but in complete the opposite, by founding a nonprofit with the goal of this organization being to remember her life through charitable work, education, and having a dialogue about mental health and suicide. Since then, he's partnered with 22 charitable organizations, including but not limited to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, Habitat for Humanity, Meals on Wheels America, Country Santa, the South Carolina Department of Transportation, just to name a few. He's also raised over $10,000 and counting for the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention of South Carolina. He's coached the 10U basketball team for multiple seasons and adopted the Issaquah Trail and so much more, which keeps on growing. He's now a rising senior at Auburn University, pursuing a degree in journalism with a specialization in sports production and history. So one would think that that's enough on his plate, but he also shines as a camera operator and videographer and editor. Currently, he holds multifaceted roles at Auburn University's War Eagle Productions, where he serves as a camera operator, technical director, and replay operator. Additionally, he freelances with Florida State University Seminole Productions, both contributing content for ESPN Family and Networks, and recently joined the Disney family as a production operations intern for ESPN, contributing to programs like SportsCenter. No big deal there, right? His recent project, Dangerous, the Rob Taylor Mentality, a poignant sports story highlighting the Auburn wheelchair basketball team, earned him a finalist nomination in the sports story and segment category for the Student Production Awards of the Southeastern Emmys. Wow. Venturing beyond university freelance work, he embarked on a 17-week, 6,000-mile journey with a college-based influencer network, amassing over 13 million views across various platforms. So there's that, apparently. He has contributed to prestigious events like the NBA playoffs and MLB regular season broadcasts, and has had the privilege of working with esteemed teams such as the Tampa Bay Rays, Orlando Magic for their home shows and national broadcasts. To top it off, he's recognized as a James F. Burns Scholar and was recently named the Spirit of Mom Courtney Award honoree for 2024 by the James F. Burns Foundation Board, a South Carolina-based organization supporting students who have lost a parent. He continues to work on all these things and many more as a 21, if if you can believe that, 21-year-old philanthropist with a very bright future. He's endearing and compassionate with a smile and vibrance that lights up a room and makes anyone feel warm to the heart and soul in his presence. Please welcome the intelligent, electric, and vivacious, inspiring, motivating, and charming founder of the July 8th Project and my nephew, Zachary Grant. Zach, welcome to the Iceberg Change podcast.
Wow, that's quite an intro from my uncle right there. That's awesome.
Well,
I guess what you're saying.
I have to say, everything about that is 100% true. It's all on the internet, so it's true, right? But more importantly, it's your story, man, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud just to read it and just to share it with everyone on the show. I've wanted to have you on the show for a long time. We're finally coming up on July 8th. I got my July 8th Project T-shirt on here. I haven't gotten the new one yet. It's in the mail, but we're coming up on that. So I wanted to, let everyone know about the wonderful work you're doing, and to honor and respect the July 8th Project. So thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
So I know you've been kind of interviewed out today, so we'll dive right in. So Zach, we see you as someone who's spreading positive change in the world because your actions have a positive effect on humanity. You're someone that we call a social impact hero by our definition. Now, I know you're a humble guy, but the first question that we ask all our guests on this show, and we've had celebrities, we've had athletes, we've had mega successful billionaires and entrepreneurs. But we've never had anyone like you. So my question to you is, do you see yourself as a hero?
No. I think I'm a kid who had something that obviously affected both of us quite deeply. And it was something that changed both of our lives forever. And it was something that in 2020, when I was seeing kind of everybody around in my life go through a lot of pain, and my community go through a lot of pain, and I knew that day was coming up, just because it was. I mean, it's a very, very, very difficult day on all of our calendars, and our family. So when it was coming around, I knew it was going to be difficult to deal with, and I didn't want to make it such a negative day anymore, and I didn't want to have to kind of face that, and I wanted to turn it into something positive, and where that honestly just a better impact, and a better day, that we could turn such a negative day from a terrible day to a holiday, and so that was my goal.
Yeah, and you've definitely accomplished that goal, with regards to the July 8th Project. It's had a big impact just in its short existence over the past 4 years. So I'm always fascinated by the origin story of the hero. So we see a social impact hero by our definition as someone who honors their purpose, engages their audience in their mission, ripples their message to others to spread positive change, and opens their heart to the world. That's the acronym of hero. So I see that you check all those boxes, even if you don't consider yourself a hero. So I think a big part of that is the origin story. So when did you've always been someone that I know has volunteered, has been active in your church, has been someone that always had a heart of service, as I would call it. So where does that come from? Where did it really start for you when you were young to want to serve, to want to do heroic things, even if you didn't consider yourself a hero?
My dad. I would say my dad and my family. Overall, I think we've always had a mind of service. I believe it's always been a part of our family since I was a kid. Obviously, I mean, my dad very well, and he is always he's been participating in some sort of mission since he was around, almost, like, I think his first mission trip that he ever was involved in was around like 10 years old. So he has been obviously participating in that. He has been a constant. He started multiple nonprofits himself, a lot with grief care after my mom's passing. And he's the only person I think that would actively go and become a hospice chaplain after grief ripped his life apart.
Yeah.
And working in as a hospice chaplain and working in bereavement care, it takes a really really special person to be able to have something like that rip apart their life and go, well, hey, instead of feeling angry at the world or feeling depressed or which those are natural to happen, he was like, I want to go help other people, and that's how I'm going to heal through this. So for me, it's all from my dad. I learned it. I saw it from a young age. We were always doing something, regardless if it was service with the church or if it was service outside the church. There was a lot of nursing homes volunteering in, a lot of food banks volunteering in, and all that stuff growing up. So it's just continuing what my dad and the legacy that he's given before me.
So where obviously, I respect that, and I've seen that, and I know that that plays a big part, a big part of it. You have to have that drive inside to do that yourself. So there's a lot of people I've seen that, when they're young, they do things because their parents make them do them, right? They go to church, or, they go volunteer because their parents are making them. But it's a different, individual kid, if you will,
Yeah.
that will continue these things when they become an adult and they're responsible for their own actions and will continue that drive on their own. So what really motivates you on a daily basis with everything clearly that you have on your plate that I read in your intro? What really motivates you on a daily basis to continue that service mentality and to have that be a part of who you are?
Yeah. For me, it's honestly the feeling that I got when I first started the July 8th project, where I felt like, and there's various things in my life where I felt like I was serving something bigger than myself. Religiously, obviously, I felt serving God is definitely at the height of everything that I do. But for me, it was, how do I, obviously I noticed when people would talk about my family or the story, it was always with this sadness and negativity. And it was always with, like almost like a, wow, we can't believe this happened to you, and it's unfortunate. And then you almost get labeled into a statistic. It's
Mhm.
something that we've talked about a lot with the Burn Scholarship, where you easily can fall into a statistic when you're handed a tragedy like that. And for me, it was kind of, I wanted to be able to, and internally, what motivates me is the ability to be beyond that statistic, is the ability to be not necessarily an inspiration, but to be insightful for others and go, look, when you're handed this situation and it affects your life definitely in a negative way, how do I turn around and make it into something where it's not helping me, but helping other people? And just honestly, that's a conversation that happens. Everything we do, everything I've done with the July 8th project, it happens every single time, because they have to ask, first of all, what it is. And
Mhm.
when somebody sees the July 8th project, they're like, oh, what is this? What is, I've never heard of this organization. And then, quickly I have to go, well, it's an organization, I founded and remembrance of my mom that, usually will create conversations about mental illness in remembrance of her through charitable work. And so, we're doing a lot. We're and very involved in our community, doing a lot of change. Obviously, the annual charity day every year on the 8th is definitely the biggest day of change, but it's something that I do throughout the year. So those conversations really, I guess, would be the biggest motivator, and the ability to say, okay, this is what happened to me. This is how I responded to it. And this is how, as some people will apply that in their own life. I get a quick tangent. Um, One of my best friends, Jay Denning, who's on the Auburn wheelchair basketball team, that dangerous was about his coach. The dangerous Rob Taylor mentality video was about his coach. It was cool to get an award for that, but it was really cool to tell his story, because for not only am I motivated in myself, but I literally live with somebody every day who doesn't have legs, who was born without legs, um, and is, from birth has had to deal with that. And he is probably one of the happiest and most outgoing people I know. So seeing that only through myself, but also seeing somebody like that every day and and I've tried to surround myself with people like that who, regardless of the outcome or the tragedy that's in their life, they have turned it around and responded with about the most optimistic way that you can.
Yeah, and it's I love the perspective on that because that's what I hear in what you're saying. It's really all about perspective, right? One person can have the perspective, hey, I don't have, um, I don't have legs, and this is. I almost think of it may sound humorous, and I don't mean it in that capacity, but I almost think of like Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
oh, I don't have legs, I don't have legs, and then he totally changes from his perspective, and then he's happy again, and and that's what I hear with you is that, like I said in the intro, is that so many people can expect that, and and I'll be the first to admit, when your mom, my sister, passed away, the yes, I was worried about your dad. I was most worried about you and your sister because you're
Yeah.
so little, right? Because you were just babies, right? I mean, just infants, toddlers, and you know, I I often pray, and I'm often so grateful, and I share this with family. And I was just speaking to my wife Tanya about this just yesterday about you talk about having different interviews, and all this bright future, and I was saying, yeah, you have like the brightest future I can think of, and for me to envision that
Yeah.
immediately, post July 8th, 2004 was really unfathomable.
Yeah.
And the fact that your perspective has always been to, remember with love and service and honor and everything that takes a special person to do that. And I would add the impact that you've had, the heroic impact, by the way, that you've had on others just by them seeing that and understanding how you view it and what you're doing because of it. That's what we call a spark moment, which we'll get to later in the program. That you may never know the positive impact that has on others, but I can guarantee you it does have a positive impact that you may never see or may never understand. The person that you deliver a meal to, that it changes their day or prevents them from doing something that tragic that they might have done. Those are the things that you never know about, that if you didn't act the way that you did, as a result of what happened, those ripples would never be out there. And that's the real heroic part. So thank you for doing all that. So so obviously, it started with your dad, and then you've grown up, and it's seeing that impact has continued to resonate with you. How do you see it reflect? You're obviously doing a lot, right? So how do you see it reflected in the different things that you do? Like when you're working, or do you see it, reflecting in the different things that you do, like when you're doing your camera work, or when you're, doing videography, or how do you see the impact of either that service or the experiences you've had? How do you see that in your life?
Yeah, I definitely do. I actively see it, and um, working in TV is a both a very it's a very positive thing to do. It's very fun, but it's also very egocentric business. And it's a very you're in front of camera. There's lots of eyes on you. Working in sports, there's a lot of eyes on the people that are around, and you would think it could be very egocentric and very focused on oneself, but when you have that service mentality coming from the Joy Project and working at the organizations that I've been able to work at that had a service impact. Auburn is service first, and that's always how they've been. World Productions is service first. ESPN, I would say, is service first in a lot of ways, and just being able to be around it and see the way that their mentality. I mean, it was a family owned business. So seeing, there's a perception out there of what it means to be in TV, and I've applied that service mentality to it, and I've noticed a really positive change. I've seen it in workplaces that I've had, where there's been workplaces on the road and stuff that have had a very negative, very egocentric, me mentality, and just by going in there and being happy to be there, and sharing my story, not sharing my story, other people sharing my story, quickly I've watched it change over time just by interacting with them and being around them. You can kind of see, I would definitely say that over time, when you have a service mentality, it carries through all aspects of your life. And I think something, as far as charitable work, I think it's something that we all should do, for a reason of, it puts you on the lowest step of the pedestal, because you are having to kill the ego and sit down and be able to serve the person above you, no matter who you are.
Mhm.
And I think, regardless of where my life takes me, I want to keep that mentality. The people that have made a biggest impact on me throughout my entire life have had that mentality, regardless of how who they were, how vaulted they were, whatever. They were service first, and they were bottom of the rung. Hey, I'm going to be this way. Um, and I know, regardless of who I actually am to the world, I am a service person first. I think there's a Marine, I can't remember, I think he's in Virginia, that he ascended to, basically, he was this third person in the FBI, and he's now a school bus driver. And I remember just hearing that story and thinking, that's amazing. That's the type of person that I want to be. Regardless of whatever, down the line, I think, regardless of who you are positionally, I think having that service mentality will not only help you, but it'll help everybody that you're working around. It helps everybody that you're actively around. It helps your family, in serving your own family, and the ability of, hey, I'm willing to, regardless of what I do, because life puts you in all kinds of situations, right? Where, I would say, ego, or that type of, air is what I would call it, can put you, from doing something not to help someone else. And I think the ability to drop that and go, hey, look, I will drop myself to the lowest, put them on the pedestal to help somebody else. I think this is the mentality, that is very beneficial for life.
Yeah, and what I hear, and thank you for sharing that. I think that's why, you know, we really have always gotten along. I mean, or resonate with each other. I would say, obviously we're family, but is because we both have that service mentality. Your dad has it, you have it, I have it. My family has it, and it was something that I had to grow into. That when I was your age, yes, it was a part of my upbringing and everything. It wasn't something that came as natural for me as it does for you, and I had to grow into it, later in life. And my kids, have that as well, and so I'm grateful for that. What I hear in you sharing, Zach, is really scripture, and really, what we're taught, and what Jesus has taught all of us. So how has faith played a role in your life? Because I hear it in everything you're saying, but how has it, and how does it play a role in your life?
To be all honesty, like, be completely honest, in all honesty, being broken. I think I'm gonna say like that, and I think that being broken, we're all sinful. We all have moments of struggle, and I think being broken, honestly, is one of the best ways to, understand oneself. And because when you're broken, you can have faith and you can sit down. For me, I attend a church in Auburn called ACC, and they're a very theology first type of church. They're very, and literally that church started with like six people and the pastor, and I think his wife, and like a couple people in the community. And it started, I believe, in like it was a Chick-fil-A, and that went from a Chick-fil-A church to now a massive, like, six service a day church in the community of Auburn in 10 years. And it's fascinating to see, just because of the really how it grew was just honest theology, being willing to be broken, being willing to serve one another. And now that church, ACC itself, I believe 60 or 70% of the Auburn freshman class was at the church at some point throughout this year. And like I said, they went from 4 services to 6 services, all type of stuff. And it was not on the fact of, okay, hey, we're doing fancy lights or what any of this. No, it was literally a service first mentality and word of mouth that spread by person to person. And that was fascinating to me. That's why it's in that church. And for me, it's something that I've lived in my entire life. Um, and faith has always played a role, being broken, and being able to, for me, like anytime I'm dealing with any type of struggle, or had a bad day, or for me recently it's been like my phone, where I feel like I'm going to my phone a lot more than I recently have, and I've been trying to control that. So I literally go to the Bible. I've had it where I go into my literally going and reading scripture. I've been reading a lot of Psalms recently, just because instead of distracting myself with an Instagram feed or TikTok feed or Twitter feed, it was like, okay, I'm gonna spend some time in Psalms, just to like it literally to balance out that. So I think faith. Whenever we have struggle, I think it's easy to turn internally to like the outside things of the world, and I think really opening the Bible is probably going to solve about 80-90% of your problems. I think it's a
Yeah, if you
really
let it, if
yeah,
you let it.
yeah, I think it's a
Yeah.
really beautiful way. Like, you open the Bible up, and I've had this happen time after time after time again in my life where I'm struggling with something, and I open the Bible, and sometimes I'll just randomly go to a passage, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting there like, oh wow, this passage is speaking with pure conviction to me right now. It's funny how
Yeah.
God does
Yeah.
that.
It happens like, I mean, I'm no longer like, I used to get kind of like, whoa, this is freaky, and now no longer. I'm like, yeah, that's obvious, right? It's just
Yeah,
like you read I read the daily devotional, and it fits spot on with whatever's going on for the day, or the passage. I always go first to the Bible app on my phone, so I'll open the Bible app and read the
yeah,
scripture of the day and everything, and it's just like the message is always spot on, and God's timing is always perfect. It's always impeccable, and so I love when that happens, because it's a perfect mesh. And yeah, your message is important, because it's really easy to go to places we shouldn't, or turn to the world for our problems or challenges, or as a distraction, when God has it all right there available,
yeah.
for only open to listen. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know that will help people, and obviously that's been a big part of your life and molding, the person that you are today. So I do want to get to, you sharing more about because we will air this for the July 8th. So sharing more about what the July 8th project is about. But before we do that, and wrap up with that, I want you to share, what would you say a big part of being an impactful hero is having purpose in your life, and I can tell you have purpose in your life. So what would you say is your current purpose?
My current purpose and my lifelong purpose, is to impact as many people positively through, I would say, the July 8th projects, and by outer being just being myself, is in a way that affects their life in a good way, and to honestly prevent as many suicides as I can. And I know, I've had friends that have struggled with suicide, and mental illness is on the rise like crazy. That's a statistic that it brings through me a lot, is my age, the amount of male suicides that you're seeing is drastically going up, from the ages of like 15, 16, to 22, 23. And I saw it in my own community, where there was a kid, Austin, who I grew up with and went to church with, who passed away from suicide about 4 years ago. And just seeing like that becoming more and more and more, as time goes on. And so as many conversations, or many ways to reach other people in an honest way, about how suicide has affected my life, and how, it can be, something that's incredibly, with people who are really struggling with it, they almost never want to say anything, whether it's guilt or shame or struggle. And the ability to create those honest conversations when someone is struggling with it,
Yeah.
I think is if I can be a conversation starter in that, or if I can get somebody to have an honest conversation about suicide, then that's a successful life for me.
Yeah. That's good. That's fantastic. And I know you are doing that and you will continue to do that. So definitely honoring your purpose. You've checked all the boxes, as I said you would, for being a hero, Zach, whether you see it or not. So it's funny because probably more than half of people, or three-fourths of people, say no, right, to that question about seeing themselves as a hero. And I'm always like, well, I'm going to convince you by the time the show is over, because of, I guarantee you're going to, fulfill all the criteria from, my criteria of being a hero. So you already did that before, so you continue to do that in your answers. So share more about the July 8th project, the day, like what's going to be transpiring. This episode will air, uh, in audio form before the 8th, and then on the 8th on YouTube. This should be, someone's watching this on YouTube on the 8th. So what's going on July 8th?
Yeah. So, this year on for July 8th, well, every year, to give a broader view real fast, every year, with the July 8th project, we have an annual charity day, in which we volunteer. It started with me in 2020 volunteering by myself and putting a schedule out there. And we worked with about 5 organizations all throughout the upstate South Carolina area. And put a schedule out there, and thankfully a lot of people showed up and came. So, we were able to get a lot done. So what that annual charity day looks like, though, is we work with 3 to 4 organizations. It's been Clemson was 2020, 2021 it was in Colorado, 2022 it was Auburn, Alabama, and back in the upstate of South Carolina, around the Clemson and Travelers Rest areas. In 2023, it was in Los Angeles, which was really cool because I got to visit my mom's grave. And then we also had a group in Travelers Rest as well. And this year in 2024, it will be in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we will be working with a food bank, so the Southeastern Food Bank here in Charlotte. And then we will also be working with a women's shelter, with Safe Alliance, which is a large national organization for, domestic violence, in the area. So we'll be working with them, and volunteering at their women's shelter. And then the end part of the day, we will be at Helping Hands Children's Home in Clemson, and planting a couple trees, in Nettles Park, and also on our Adopt a Highway, cleaning it up. So it's going to be a busy day. It's going to be a really fun day. And on top of that, we do a t-shirt drive, and donation drive. So all the donations will go to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention of South Carolina this year. And then our t-shirt, which you have seen, I showed it to you,
The
that
original
we made.
ones here.
Yeah, you got the OG T-shirt on. But this year, I really, the T-shirts are cool to see the logo and all that stuff, and the T-shirt this year, has my mother's grave and pictures. It's from last year's Life Project, and pictures of some of the people and things that we have done over the years around her grave. And so we were able to put that on a T-shirt, and then put our mission statement on the back. And so it's just really special. That image for me, when you're talking about purpose, and a life fulfilled and what is my purpose, that image is that is my purpose. So
Mhm.
seeing, it was really, really, it was a really special day. to be able to lay those photos out on the grave, and sit there and kind of look at like, okay, these are people. Some of them had dealt with suicide. Some of them never wanted to have that conversation. Some of them had mental illness in their family that they had never talked to with anybody about. Some of them, it just all different personal connections to it. And to see them happy, a lot of them are smiling in those photos, and to see them volunteering and giving back and thinking of something greater than themselves, while also being able to deal with something that's is really intimate and personal, like thoughts of suicide. It was just really special, because I think not, well, I will serve through my life, but honestly, my mom's life, although ended, very tragically, I think has made a lot more positive impact now than we ever thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. Well, thank you for sharing that. We'll make sure that all of that goes in the show notes. We'll have those links and everything that we share so people can support the T-shirt drive and participate as best they can in, in the charity day for sure. So, two final questions that we ask all our guests here on the iSpark Change podcast, Zach, because one is about spark moments, which I alluded to earlier. And these are moments where it's that initial spark, that initial moment where our actions or the actions of another have that ripple effect that goes far beyond that initial act. So
Yep.
you've talked about a lot of, and I mentioned, there's probably, hundreds, thousands of spark moments on ways you've impacted others, but share a spark moment of either a way someone impacted you or that you've impacted another where maybe you saw the results of that impact. You were able to see how that developed into something else in your lifetime.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm sitting right at it on the iSpark change as well. It's in it, I mean, we had a conversation a couple years ago, about how COVID kind of affected all of us, in this very negative and very like locked in way. And we felt like, at least that we talked about, we felt like we were just like, almost hitting a wall. But then also all of these ideas were coming, and like all of these ways of having, how can we help and how can we problem solve in our communities? And we talked about like, and how would we best do that? And iSpark Change, I
Mhm.
know, came around that time, and we talked about that. I talked about the Joy 8th Project with you, and it was just both one of those things where it was just like, we were placed in such a hard situation, and yet both turned around and wanted to make some sort of benefit. So hopefully, iSpark Change itself is the spark moment.
Oh, wow, that'd be a first for this show. So thank you very much for sharing that. Well, continuing on with that, Zach, our final question here, because our goal at iSpark Change is to positively impact 1 billion people within 5 years of launching our upcoming social impact social media platform. And we know we can't do that alone. We know we need the help of impactful leaders like yourself to show others the way, because many people feel, as I once did, that they're too small to make a difference. So I value your thoughts and opinions as an iSpark Change social impact hero. So I want you to peer into the future, peer into our iSpark Change crystal ball. And what can the world become if everyone starts practicing that, has that heart of service like you two, and believes that they can impact our future?
Yeah. I think over an allocated period of time, if everybody were to actively have that service mentality, I honestly say it would be a lot like the way the world was. And there's a lot of negative aspects to the way the world was, but there were a lot of positive aspects about family and neighborhood, and the family, that you saw, um, in America specifically, but like where, you definitely have a positive love and care, for your community. And there's a lot of the negative connotations that can come with that family, but there's a lot of positive love, that you don't see anymore. It's hard, to see. It's definitely hard to see, love and care just out into the world for strangers, and a service mentality out into the world for strangers. But I think with the world that we have now, that positive mindset and service can definitely change it in a healthy way.
Well, I agree. And hopefully we'll get to see that in my lifetime, for sure in yours, but hopefully in my lifetime as well. Well,
Yeah.
Zach, thank you. We know our audience will want to learn more about you. So where's the best place where they can connect and learn more about the July 8th project?
Yeah, July8thproject.org. You can go and you can, there's a lot about us, and there's a lot about this year's July, the charity day. And then at July8th Project on Instagram is a great way. You can see literally everything that we've done over the years. A lot of Instagram posts about different things that we've done, different charitable events, different people, and what we've been able to accomplish. So those two things definitely I would go to.
Okay, perfect. We'll make sure, and that's July 8th with the number 8th, project.org. We'll make sure we put that underneath the link. Well, thank you for taking your time today to share your heart and wisdom with our audience. Zach, you came and you over-delivered as I expected you would. Your passion, strength, and resilience are evident, and you are a humble, compassionate, and lead with a heart of service and gratitude, which tells me you're going to continue to have success in all facets of life, and this is only the beginning of your social impact.
Oh, so.
All right. It's been a pleasure having you on, Zach. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Impact Heroes, it's our stories that connect us all, and we love hearing Zach's today. Zachary Grant, you're not only an inspiring and amazing human being, you truly are an iSpark Change social impact hero. We'll see you all next time.
Do you want Rick to speak at your event? Here is what others have to say.
Did not know his story, and it was so inspirational, and his presence on stage, his authenticity was just incredible.
Performance made me feel some type of way. My name is Craig Siegel.
If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, hire Rick. I promise you this, you will not be disappointed.
Visit rickcornelis.com to book him today.
Remember, Impact Heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.